What are these moves called again? I forget. They're called
the super moves are like the grand
moves.
over the top moves. That's when you have your bar full.
Right. And you guys must have, when you were making Injustice 2, you must have thought about, hey, do we do a fatality type of system? And I think it's interesting that you kind of took this route instead, because they're a lot of fun to pull off.
We were kind of like, okay, of course we're going to bring back the favorite characters. Of course we're going to expand the roster, but we wanted to do something that was unexpected. That's kind of the whole gear system that comes into play.
Which is, I mean, I think is going to work out real nicely. It's a great way to keep people playing. And, you know, I still love these little character selection, taunt, trading blows thing. That's great. You know, and I've been a big fan of your games for a long time. I mean, I loved Mortal Kombat vs. DC, you know. I love Mortal Kombat, the reboot, maybe, and have just like a cool story that I could beat my way through.
Exactly. You know, any game with a roster of characters, you know, Mortal Kombat, one of the things that's always stood out was it had a roster of characters and they had a relationship with each other, and there was a story. And so we started presenting it with the cinematic, you know, method where the player participates in the fighting. You know, and so when we did Injustice, again, it's a perfect marriage. You have Superman and Batman and Aquaman, and they're not talking to each other. They're not acknowledging each other.
Yeah.
That's a waste of such a great, you know, opportunity with them. So, you know, we did in Injustice and in Injustice 2, we're going to have a really deep cinematic story experience, like watching a movie.
Yeah.
You know, and
or a really good TV show, maybe. You
exactly,
know?
and participating in the fights.
Which is so cool. I love the one in Mortal Kombat X. I mean, Mortal Kombat 9 or Mortal Kombat the reboot, that was a revelation. Yeah. And I went, oh God, I didn't know how bad I wanted this. And then in Mortal Kombat X, I felt like it was like almost like perfected. Like it was like the story was really tight. It was really interesting, you know.
When we the last game, Batman put Superman in prison.
Yeah.
And you know, we're going to continue that storyline and find out what happens after that. It's been fun to create all that stuff.
So where is Superman these days? What's he up to?
Well, when we last left him off, he was in prison, and as you might guess, since he's in the game, you know, he may get out. So
I wonder if he could get out of that prison,
right,
you know,
in some capacity. But yeah, that's part of, I guess, what we're going to be revealing in the next few months is like the details of the story and how cool that's going to be mixed in.
That's awesome, and I'm kind of transfixed here watching Batman do his thing with Supergirl here. Now, Batman, obviously, you know, one of the most iconic of all superheroes, and one of my favorite characters, frankly, in the last game. Oh, I like the shadowing effect that's on the wall there. That's really cool.
Yeah, the lighting's really dramatic.
Yeah,
in this arena.
And I mean, that's one of the nice things here, too. When you made Injustice, one of the best-looking games on last gen. Absolutely.
Characters that we released. Injustice had 6 DLC characters that reached out. Mortal Kombat X had 8 characters, so you can see where we're going as far as our, you know, we really want the games to be supported not only with DLC characters, but with, you know, in tournaments and prize pools and all that stuff like that. So that's been a great part of the game too.
Was the super moves that you have, and you tease some of them in the trailer with obviously you got Batman and Superman and going at each other. But tell us, you know, this game. Let's talk about sort of the customizations. One of the things we were in Chicago, you're talking a lot about, is how everyone's going to have a different Batman or a different Superman, right? Tell us how that works.
Yeah, you know, fighting games are all about, you know, the character that you're playing. And for the most part, when people play the character, you know, it's the character that we made, and you basically learn it, you master it, you learn the nuances of it, but you don't really change what it does. And that's kind of what we're introducing with this game. We're really like saying, okay, here's a base version of Aquaman, here's a base version of Superman, Atrocitus, and that's your starting point. And then when you start acquiring gear, and that gear actually makes your character more powerful, and you're the one who chooses what it is that it's going to enhance as far as the part of the game. And you know, as we can see before, you know, our super moves were kind of like, we set such a high bar before, it's kind of like, so we're trying to really just supersede all of this.
I love that that's all in engine, all this insanity.
Oh yeah.
Now I know at E3 here you're showing, I think it's what, you have 3 areas, 4 characters, or what can we expect?
We're going to see 6 characters.
6 characters.
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, and 3 arenas. They're kind of like famous ones, you know, Metropolis, Gotham City, and Atlantis. You might notice as you're seeing the gameplay here is you know, when you see Batman for the second time, he looks a little bit different. That's because that's a different Batman. When you see Grodd for the second time, it's a little bit different. Yeah. Everybody's is going to look different, and that's what's so exciting about it, because they're going to actually have, you know, the most personalized. The personalization is what we're really adding to this game, as far as, you know, making your version of Batman, your version of Superman, your version of Grodd, and just the outrageousness in it.
It looks insane. Well, Ed, thank you so much.
How do you come out to get your sort of full deck of characters?
We usually come up with a list that's like, you know, 80% of what we ended up being. As we write the story, you know, we have these very detailed kind of cinematic stories that we do. You know, the writers, you know, need characters that they can, you know, a certain amount of villains, certain amount of heroes, and, you know, we want to be able to accommodate that. And DC also, you know, joins the conversation. And then, of course, you know, the passionate players who really let their points, you know, be heard on Twitter and social media.
Yeah, and through the mailbox and shouting outside your house, I'm sure, and everything else. We're having a look at some gameplay right here. Gorilla Grodd already going at it.
Yes, two of the you know, new additions to our roster. Gorilla Grodd, who's, you know, the villain of the Flash, and Atrocitus, who is kind of like, you know, a big, angry, bloody Red Lantern, kind of almost like the opposite of Green Lantern. Who's and you know, Atrocitus is kind of like an anti-hero, but he's got a lot of anger issues. And but they're so far two of our big brawler characters. Grodd's kind of interesting in that he has these kind of big, you know, gorilla ape moves, but he also has kind of telekinetic moves, which is like kind of like a Kenshi or an Ermac or something like that. It's a great combination of the two.
We'll talk about the gear system in a second, but how is the fighting developed? Is it very much similar to Injustice, the first one we played 2 years ago?
The groundwork is Injustice. I mean, we're with every game we try to add layers for players to kind of learn and master. You know, like a lot of these. You know, the fighting game tournaments, you know, the hardcore guys, you know, we're really into the whole esports thing. We've been doing with Mortal Kombat X and the first Injustice. We've been participating pretty heavily into the tournament scene, and so we've added a number of kind of like lower level stuff that, you know, some players may never quite experience, but the hardcore guys who really want to dig deep can really devour.
Talk to us a little bit about the gear system. So how does this work? Is it just like unlocks? Is it purely aesthetic?
Sure, it's gear, and probably in the simplest of terms, I would describe gear as costume pieces that actually power up your character. So, you know, when you finish a fight, we're going to have these drops where basically, and the victory screen also rewards you with this gear, and you have the choice of, you know, equipping your character with that gear or not. And so there's a molding, so to speak, of as you keep getting gear, you keep, you know, deciding if you want to use it, and, you know, you want to focus on, you know, offense or defense or enhance certain moves or unlock certain moves. And you'll see here that the gear is being rewarded, and the player has the opportunity to equip their character with that gear right away, or to kind of save it in a like a
vault, or
exactly, and then they can, you know, equip their player for certain missions or something like that if they really want to beef up their defense or offense or enhance this one move or something like that. And that kind of customization really results in, like, you know, visually and gameplay wise, it's your Grodd, it's your Superman, your Batman, your Aquaman, and that's really the kind of foundation of what we're building our main gameplay around.
Go for it, babe.
I've got a question. Who is this rocket-powered cat that keeps flying in from Atrocitus?
He is also, you know, Atrocitus is a Red Lantern. You know, there's a whole spectrum of colors, and he is actually another Red Lantern. His name is Dexstar. It's part of the DC lore, and they're kind of they kind of work together. And so we incorporated him into the fighting. He shoots projectiles.
Oh yeah, look.
He does all these.
Oh man,
he's adorable.
He is.
And then, and we have a.
You're speaking to a good crowd here as well. Two of us are cat lovers.
Yeah, and so it's awesome. People who know the Atrocitus kind of backstory and lore will really appreciate his cameo there.
How is the gear stuff going to play into what you were talking about earlier with esports? Are you going to lock that stuff out? Is it,
Yeah, well, certainly, with the gameplay changes are you're going to have a significantly more powerful version of Superman after you've been, gearing him up and leveling him up. So we will obviously have something to level things out for things like tournaments and whatnot, because you don't want to have, somebody coming in with a level 50 Superman against a level 1, Batman or something like that. But we certainly have plans to do like a more level playing field version.
DC are also keeping pretty busy on their own media front. The development of Batman versus Superman, has that affected your development at all, or like even Supergirl, like what they're doing there? Has any of that sort of bled into what you're doing in Injustice?
No. I mean, a lot of what we do is kind of. We draw inspiration from the comics and the movies, and the animated shows is a really big one too. But pretty much the development of our stuff is independent of the movies and all that.
Yeah. And it must be fun, I guess. Second time around is probably a bit more trust there as well. They've seen what you've done. Like previously, it was like, okay, these crazy Mortal Kombat devs are gonna take our DC characters and make them rip each other's throats out.
Yeah, exactly. Well, when we were pitching the first game, one of the things I would always say is like, we have no intention of tearing Batman's head off. We have no intention of doing anything, Mortal Kombat like. This, our studio is filled with, superhero fans, and so we just love this kind of stuff. With some of the moves we come up with are drawn on inspiration on something we might have seen in the animated series or something like that, and so we love these kind of nods to the stuff. Anybody who's a fan of these characters, you're really going to see how much we love it. We love the characters too.
Peter, I know you're a massive Mortal Kombat fan as well. 8 out of 10 on GameSpot. We gave Mortal Kombat X.
We did, yes.
Last year.
Yeah, and actually, I'm very curious. I understand the different series, obviously, but what did developing Mortal Kombat X, and then the reception that followed, how did that inform your approach to Injustice 2, if at all? I have to imagine there's some sort of
after every game, we can kind of take a step back and kind of, ask ourselves, what resonated with people, what could we have done better, and we always kind of accumulate that stuff and put it into it. One of the things that we've always wanted to do, as a studio, what we're always kind of moving towards is allowing the player to have more control over their character. And so, with Mortal Kombat X, we were like, okay, we're going to make 3 versions of these characters.
Right.
You get to choose which one you like. They have differences that in terms of their style of gameplay, letting them select it. Now we're kind of like taking the next step of saying, okay, these variables that we're messing with, we're going to give you access to these variables and let you change things around. And then that kind of inspired like the leveling things up. And so this is really like a overall big picture direction that we're going with fighting games. We really